driven by power and strategy. Geography is more than just land. It's the stage where nations battle for survival and supremacy. Control the land, control the future. This is Geopolitics.
What is imperialist geopolitics?
Have you ever come across a situation where a country invades another country? Well, you might say you did, or you did not, but believe it or not, all of us did. Are you familiar with Magellan? Of course, 1 + 1 is equals. Kidding aside, our country already experienced firsthand what imperialist geopolitics is. In simpler terms, it's about the connection between the location, land and resources and how they shape political power. For instance, why did Magellan travel across the world? Yes, you are right, in search for spices, which is a what? Resources. Where did he land? In the Philippines, which eventually lead to the political power of Spain over our country for staging 333 years. This just means that what mainly drives imperialistic tendencies are different motivations like economic, strategic, cultural, nationalistics, but in short, selfishness. This concept was further contextualized in the 1900s by thinkers like Mackinder, Mahan, Haushofer, and many more. They have common grounds. All of them agreed that imperialistic tendencies first start from wanting more and wanting what's not yours.
Oops, is that familiar?
After hearing this short discussion, I hope you have learned something. So next time someone asks you what concept encapsulate the Philippine colonization, answer: imperialist geopolitics.
World War II ended in 1945, but instead of peace, a new global struggle began. The Cold War, a war of ideologies, power and fear. The United States and the Soviet Union had been allies during the war, but with Hitler gone, they became rivals. The US believed in democracy and free markets. The Soviet Union under Stalin promoted communism and total state control. Neither side trusted the other. Tensions flared fast. America launched the Marshall Plan to rebuild war-torn Europe and stop the spread of communism. Billions in aid were sent to Western nations. Fear turned into an arms race. Both superpowers built massive nuclear stockpiles. Espionage agencies like the CIA and KGB battled in the shadows. Mistrust and propaganda spread across the globe. The Cold War didn't begin with bombs, but with fear, rivalry, and two visions of the future. From division came lessons. Let's not forget what the Cold War taught us.
In continuation, I'll be discussing only one key practice which is the most notable during the Cold War, the policy of containment, a foreign policy initiated by the United States in order to stop the spread of communism, an ideology that the USSR has been advocating. The process of containment usually begins with the US providing more funds to communist states in order to stop them from spreading communist ideas and in order to give a facade that the US government is more helpful at providing than the USSR. The US is utilizing the containment policy as they believe that the communism will crush capitalism, as the equality of classes sounds promising to those who are struggling to make ends meet. So to conclude the discussion, the Cold War was a war of ideologies, particularly on the USSR's communism and US capitalism, and the policy of containment is a way to either contain or conquer the differing ideologies that could potentially destroy the reputation of both superpowers.
Rising powers like China, India, Brazil, Russia, and South Africa are challenging the Western-led order by promoting a multipolar world and reforming global institutions through BRICS. They assert regional leadership and advocate for sovereign equality, economic justice, and non-Western development models. Initiatives like China's Belt and Road and Russia's regional actions reflect the push for a more inclusive global system, while liberals see a cooperative rules-based order integrating rising powers. Realists argue global politics remain driven by power struggles. Post-colonial critics view the liberal order as a tool for Western dominance. Since the Cold War, U.S. hegemony shaped global norms, but post-9/11 actions and emerging multipolarity have weakened its dominance. Today, the global order is increasingly contested, requiring the U.S. to share power and legitimacy with rising actors.
Geopolitics in the post-Cold War era. At the end of the Cold War, the United States emerged as the world's sole superpower, ushering in a unipolar era marked by U.S. dominance in politics, economics, and global institutions. The 1990s saw optimism for a liberal international order, with globalization accelerating, the rise of NGOs, and the spread of liberal values. Many believe U.S. leadership would remain unchallenged as no other state appeared capable of rivaling its power. However, by the early 2000s, this order faced growing challenges. The rise of large, fast-growing countries like China, India, and Brazil, along with the formation of coalitions such as the BRICS and expansion of G7 to the G20 signal a shift toward a more multipolar world. These emerging powers demand a greater influence on global governance, reflecting the dissatisfaction with the status quo and a move away from historic Eurocentrism.
Environmental geopolitics is about how countries and powerful groups use the environment like land, water, and natural resources to gain or protect power. It's not just about nature. It's about who controls nature, who suffers from environmental problems, and who decides what those problems mean. For example, when a country claims land rich in oil or water, it's not only protecting its environment, it may also be trying to gain power over others. Climate change, pollution, and deforestation aren't just science issues. They are political ones too. Rich countries may blame poor countries for global warming, even though they pollute more. This shows how environmental problems are explained differently, depending on who benefits. The struggle over nature is also a struggle over meaning. Who decides what's natural? Who defines what's worth protecting? These questions are key in environmental geopolitics. Understanding this helps us see that saving the Earth is not just about planting trees, it's also about fairness, justice, and power.
When we talk about environmental issues, we often think of science, climate change, pollution, rising sea levels. But what's often overlooked is how deeply connected these issues are with politics. Let's take climate change. It's not just an environmental problem, it's a political one too. Why? Because the effects of climate change don't stop at borders. One country's pollution can affect the whole planet. That's why global cooperation is essential. We've seen this in international agreements like the Paris Agreement, where countries commit to reducing emissions. But even those agreements can be controversial. Some countries join, others drop out, and commitments aren't always followed.
What happens when ordinary people push back against powerful countries and institutions? That's the heart of anti-geopolitics. Traditionally, geopolitics focuses on states, how they compete for territory, power, and control. But this top-down view often ignores the struggles of ordinary people. Anti-geopolitics, introduced by geographer Paul Routledge, flips the script. It looks at how indigenous communities, farmers, workers, and activists resist powerful systems. Routledge calls it geopolitics from below, giving voice to those excluded from traditional global power. As philosopher Michel Foucault said, there are no relations of power without resistances. Wherever power exists, someone is always pushing back.
In a world where global superpowers not only wield military and economic dominance, but also control the narratives that shape public perception, acknowledging anti-geopolitical actors is both a scholarly and moral imperative. These actors, often marginalized, silenced, or misrepresented, resist the reduction of their identities to stereotypes crafted to justify domination. The case of the Palestinian people is frequently portrayed through a lens of violence. Their legitimate aspirations for statehood, dignity, and historical justice are distorted by powerful media and political institutions. Anti-geopolitical resistance is not merely about contesting borders, but about reclaiming voice, agency, and truth. To recognize these struggles is to affirm that power is not absolute and that beneath the weight of empires, there endures a profound and resilient human will to resist, to speak, and to be heard.
Geopolitics reveals how geography shapes the destiny of nations and the global balance of power. Understanding these forces is key to navigating today's complex world. In every map lies a story of influence, conflict, and opportunity.